We might be too young to have a spotted cow, but we are both diehard Packers fans.
I could talk about this for hours.
He was my legend. He was my quarterback one. Taysom Hill, forever in my heart.
We have a kind of a reputation of being the young and diehard fans. How is that, Dr. Pepper Taysom?
Amazing.
Okay, good. Let's keep it under 25 minutes, all right?
Welcome in, everybody, to this episode of the Underage Packers podcast. This is Joey, and here today joining me is my friend Big B, who is sticking it out on the inside of this post-Packers trip sickness. So how you doing, Big B?
I'm feeling a lot better than last week. Doesn't look like I got hit by a bus anymore, so that's good. So a lot of progress has been made.
Good to hear. Good to hear. So he has been elevated from the injury list, and today we have a treat for you all as we have Nicole Menner, who covers the Packers for Fox11. I have, both of us have loved following her on Twitter the past two. I think she's been here for 3 years now covering the team. Just great coverage, great person. I've loved talking to her about Packers, Taylor Swift, you name it, over these past 3 years, and we finally got the chance to have her on the show today. So let's head right into that conversation. We now welcome to the show Nicole Menner. And Nicole, I want to ask you this first again because I don't pay attention to this because I don't watch Wisconsin channels. So where do you work for?
I am at Fox11.
That's right. Okay. Nicole Menner of Fox11. Nicole, thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We have just a stacked script here today. So obviously Green Bay, as will be for all of the remaining games, the most important game of the season thus far, going up against Minnesota at Lambeau Field. There's a lot to injuries to talk about. So we'll be talking about that first. We'll be talking about the Bo Melton signing. Then we'll obviously be previewing this matchup between the Packers and the Vikings. And then at the end, by high demand, our Taylor Swift / Packer segment that we did with Rachel Hotmeyer will be making a grand return. So we just got a lot to talk about today, starting with these three main injuries. Now, we did find out today that Aaron Rodgers is dealing with a knee injury, but it looks like he'll be all right. Something minor that they just wanted to address on the injury report. The big three that were suffered, though, in Miami were Keyshawn Nixon, Christian Watson, and then Josh Nijman, all three big starters for this team. And really, more importantly, I think about all those three, it's not that, all three of those are great contributors, but mostly those are three positions where the depth is kind of questionable. Mm-hmm. With Nixon, it's like, all right, we know we can get competence out of Romeo Doubs. With Watson, we have Romeo Doubs again. We have Alan Lazard. We have a solid receiving core, but their losses would be felt. And then for Josh Nijman, the tackle depth is questionable. You could move Elton over, but that's another guy you have to shift over, and a lot of movement that, playing musical chairs on the offensive line really was a struggle for this team early on in the season. And do we really want to throw Royce Newman out there? Although he did play pretty good when he had to fill in Miami. So, Nicole, what have you heard from Matt LaFleur throughout this week on those three main injuries right there?
Yeah, well, starting with the O-line, Josh Nijman was limited in practice today, but I would call that probably an encouraging sign that he actually did participate somewhat today, because like we saw, Keyshawn Nixon, Christian Watson did not participate at all. So O-line wise, I feel like that's an encouraging sign. It's just speculation if I were to say if Nijman would be good to go, but seems encouraging that he was limited. And of course, we have to talk about David Bakhtiari, yes, returned to practice today. Also limited. He's a guy that doesn't need a ton of practice reps to be able to go on Sunday. It's more about whatever, Rodgers called it the belly button injury today.
Yeah.
More about, I guess, how long it takes to heal that. And who knows, and a lot of us, I don't think, have too much experience with knowing what happens after an appendectomy.
Yeah.
But trending optimistic there that you have Nijman and Bakhtiari. Obviously, that's huge for them against this Vikings defense. Christian Watson did not practice today. Obviously, we know how much he means to the offense. I would call that a big loss if he cannot go on Sunday, but right now it seems like no one knows. So I really don't have much to add to that. We'll see if tomorrow, if he can go, or even Friday in limited fashion. Hopefully, he's a big question mark. And then, like you said, with Keyshawn Nixon, you want him out there because he can provide such a spark. Is it like absolutely detrimental if he can't play? We'll see. Yeah. You want him out there, especially with his returning abilities and the way he's filled in on defense.
Definitely.
But both of those two did not participate today, so we'll be keeping a close eye on them and see if they can go at any point this week.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Nicole, David Bakhtiari is also a big player to watch with this because a lot of those players on the offensive line are versatile. So we really don't know what offensive tackles specifically would look like. So Big B, what are your thoughts on this? I mean, there's really 3 or 4 different possibilities that could go out there on Sunday for the Packers at offensive tackle. But what are your thoughts on that situation?
Well, hopefully Bakhtiari will be out there. So hopefully Bakhtiari will be at left tackle. And I'm assuming Josh Nijman will play. Like Nicole said, very encouraging that he did practice in some form today. So both of them at tackle. And then, of course, Runyon, Myers, and Jenkins in the inside. That's just one of the best offensive lines in the league, and they have really stepped up at the end of this year.
Yeah, once they were able to find their footing, they've been really good. And that right tackle, too, I do wonder if Nijman doesn't play, if they take a look at Zach Tom, who got his name at Wake Forest for being so versatile. So maybe they don't feel too confident about him there, but I do think they would definitely consider that option.
I would think that too, especially with the way Jenkins has found his groove back in the guard position. Yeah. I think putting Zach Tom at right tackle would probably be your backup option there, if that's what it comes down to on Sunday.
Definitely. Now, one of the moves the Packers made this week that you kind of look at and think, is this a bad sign for one of these players, is Bo Melton, who they signed after he was on the Seahawks practice squad, and they signed him. Just an absolute speedster, 4.38 speed. Looks like he has some return ability. This could just be a random signing, that they liked him in the pre-draft process. He was a 7th round draft pick by Seattle in this past year's draft. So maybe they just liked him and saw the opportunity to get him. But could be a bad sign for either Nixon and or Christian Watson. So we'll have to see if he gets any reps at all during this week. And they were able to sign Mr. Melton because of their move of placing Dean Lowry on injured reserve. Now, obviously, you don't want to lose a starter to injury like this. I do think, though, I'm not sure of the exact specifics of Lowry's injury, but the Packers are looking at this like, all right, we could either keep Dean on here for him to return 2 or 3 weeks from now, or we could place him on IR, and heck, we could have him back by the conference championship game if you want to take the optimistic viewpoint of this.
Oh, conference championship.
Yes, we are looking ahead. But the one bright spot you can find in this, and I will reference this later in our Taylor Swift segment, is this door that now opens for 1st round draft pick Devontae Wyatt, who finally got his chance to shine against Miami this past week. And he showed that pretty much we were right. We were right in suspecting why he wasn't getting playing time, which has been a really big mystery of the season. So, Nicole, what were your thoughts on Wyatt's performance in Miami, and also what your suspicion is on why he was not getting a lot of playing time?
Yeah, he's been fun to watch over the last few weeks as he's kind of gotten increased snap counts. We talked so much about the rookies that have come in and made an impact and how impressive this draft class has been. He hasn't really been in that conversation as much because we haven't seen him as much. Mm-hmm. But I think LaFleur and Joe Barry have always said too, like at that position, it's just a harder jump to take from college to the NFL. So it takes more time to get acclimated. And now that he has his opportunity, it's been great to see him shine. And I think, like you said, you never want to lose a starter but he's definitely shown promise, and I think it makes you feel confident with what you have there over for the next few games, knowing that he is definitely capable of stepping into those shoes and making it an impact, especially in that Dolphins game. Like you said, he looked
Yes.
pretty good. So.
Yeah, and another reason to have confidence in that defensive line without Lowry now is that Jaron Reed had his best performance of the year so far against Miami. And against Minnesota, Packers are definitely going to have to pressure Kirk Cousins, and it's going to be a struggle without Rashawn Gary, as it has been ever since they lost him in Week 9. But if Reed can have a performance like he did against Miami, if Kenny Clark looks like he's starting to get out of this dry spell that he had in the middle of the season, and then now also Devontae Wyatt, all three of those guys have the ability to rush passer, and they'll need that this weekend against Kirk. And now let's transition over to this Vikings game here. For both sides, for both teams here, the weakness is clearly for both teams their defenses. The Packers have really struggled on the run defense. The Vikings, like was their problem last year, their pass defense is not great, although they do have Zadarius Smith and Danielle Hunter who can definitely change a game. Their defense is not great. On the offensive side of the ball, for both teams, you have playmakers. The Vikings offense is much stronger than the Packers offense this year, at least, but that's where the strengths for these two teams lie. So, one of the big problems for the Packers in Week 1 was limiting Justin Jefferson, as it is for every team that goes out on the field against Minnesota every week. So, Big B, you're up there in the defensive game planning room. What are you drawing on that whiteboard to help this Packers defense stop Justin Jefferson? Yeah, the praise
Pray a
most,
lot, maybe.
yeah, I think that's the most important part there. But yeah, Jair Alexander being on him is going to be a big thing. We saw, a lot of Packers fans' complaints were after that Vikings game was why is Jair Alexander not being matched up with Justin Jefferson every single play? And it's no disrespect to Rasul Douglas or Eric Stokes, who was their starting corner in Week 1, but he's one of the best wide receivers in the league. You want to have your best corner on him and just hope for the best. And, it's been really frustrating to watch the Packers this season, and Joe Barry called this very conservative, we're not going to let you get 80 yards, but we'd rather have you try to have 8-10-yard plays when that's not working. Like, I understand the philosophy behind that, but when it's not working, play aggressive. You have the players to do that. You have Quay Walker, who, after he has gotten his footing in the NFL, has shown that he can be a really aggressive, in-your-face player. You have Jair Alexander. You have Rasul Douglas, who thrived on being an aggressive corner last year. So it's just been very frustrating to watch the Packers defense continue this way of life this season. Nicole, going back to this Week 1 game, what are some other things that you think went wrong for the Packers that week?
Well, their offense definitely was lost in the sauce that game, I think, trying to figure out who they were, what they were going to be. Obviously, it's a much different story now. The rookies have shown promise. Christian Watson is the story, had he caught that first deep ball from Rodgers, would his season be different, all that talk. But no, I mean, they're in a much different place now than they were then. So it's hard to even compare and watch, they've been asked this week if you can even really watch the tape from Week 1 because it's just, they're different teams right now. And the Packers didn't have Bakhtiari, Elton Jenkins. I don't think they had Alan Lazard that game either.
I think you're right.
So it's just different. Defensive, I want to say I'm encouraged by the Packers defense lately, definitely more encouraged than we have been. They've been getting the takeaways, which is huge. I know it's cliche, but they really do come in bunches. They have been coming in bunches for the Packers. So that's very encouraging. I think they can capitalize on that for the Vikings. The thing they have to be careful with is, I mean, you have to find a way to stop Jefferson. He racked up like, was it 158 first half yards, I think?
Yeah, I
In the
think
game.
so.
So, and that's been their issue this season. We even saw it in the Dolphins game. In the first half, they're letting up these explosive plays. And then second half, they make the adjustments and they find a way to lock it down. I think in their past 3 games, they've only allowed like 9 total second half points.
Mhm.
So that's an encouraging sign, but you also don't want to have to wait for those second half adjustments. You want to see
Yeah.
them in the beginning and have a good plan. So I'm very curious to see what the plan is for Justin Jefferson. I was watching highlights from week 1 and I forgot how many times he was just kind of left
Oh,
wide
man.
open.
Yeah.
Very frustrating. And I'm sure they're not going to want, they're not going to let that happen again. They're going to do their best to limit him. We'll see if they put jaw on him. We'll hear from Jair on Friday, and I'm sure he'll be vocal about that, as he always is.
Hmm.
But yeah, 2 very different teams than we saw week 1. So I'm curious to see how this one goes. I think the Packers, I really do think they're going to win on Sunday. Lambeau, must-win game.
Yep.
So I think we'll see a different Packers team than we saw week 1 against the Vikings for sure.
Absolutely. You did strike a fear in me, though, reminding me of the many plays that Justin Jefferson was just screaming wide open.
It was bad.
It was. And, it made me think about these safeties that the Packers will be rolling out. And, Adrian Amos, God bless his heart. Love that man for his 3 great years of play, but he is a shadow of what he was these past 3 years. So I'm a little nervous for that. And we might also be seeing more Darnell Savage if Keyshawn Nixon cannot go. So, I might not even watch the Vikings offensive drives. That might just be what's best for my mental health at this
I think
point.
you can't put too much focus. This is the thing too. What we saw was at the Titans game, they talked about how much focus they put on like Derrick Henry,
Mhm.
and then we saw what happened. So there has to be a balance of, obviously, you have to plan for Jefferson the most because he's one of the best players in the league, but they also have a lot of other weapons on offense that you have to worry about too. So
Yeah, I mean, you have TJ Hawkinson, who was not there for the Vikings in week 1, obviously. And then Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, just a lot of great players for this Vikings team. Like you said, Nicole, I do like the Packers' chances. So I like it a lot more if Christian Watson is ready to go. But you also got to feel confident if Matt LaFleur does want to use Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon to be able to control the game a lot more, then I like this team's chances. They do got to make sure to not let their foots off the brake because we have seen with this Vikings team over the past few weeks and all season, really, that they can just explode in the fourth quarter no matter what they look like in the first 3. And I'm trying to find on my Twitter feed because I know I retweeted it at some point, but the point differential for the Vikings by quarter is absurd. I mean, they're in the negative like 50s, 60s in the first 3, and then in the fourth quarter it goes to plus 72. So it's pretty absurd what the Vikings games have looked like. Yeah, here we go. Quarter 1, negative 12, quarter 2, negative 13, quarter 3, negative 48, and quarter 4, plus 72. Just
dangerous.
a crazy, unheard of point differential. So can't let their foots off the brake. Can't let us in heartbreak with the playoffs on the line. All right. Big B, any other thoughts you want to add in here about this Vikings matchup?
A little terrified, but we're winning, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, we cannot be scared. We cannot, I think Kirk Cousins is a big fan of the show. We cannot let him hear the fact that we are a little shaken in our boots that he might go off. All right. We cannot, I don't know what I will do if we get a video of Kirk Cousins on the plane back to Minnesota, shirtless and chains. All right.
You'd
Yeah.
cry.
That's option 1. And then what happens after that, I don't know.
Now, will you be watching? Do you think the Commanders can beat the Browns, or you think the Browns are going to beat the Commanders? Because I'm kind of feeling
That-
that the Browns are going to beat the Commanders.
Yeah, I honestly don't know how the Commanders have 7 wins at this point. But yeah, I mean, with Carson Wentz in there especially, I can't. I'm not too scared about it. And I think this is a matchup Packers fans have to look at: Commanders versus Browns, opposed to Commanders versus Dallas next week. Because I have my doubts that Philly is going to lose to New Orleans this week, so Dallas will pretty much be playing for nothing next week. So
I'm thinking the Packers will be in control of their own destiny.
fingers crossed.
We'll see.
Fingers crossed. All right. Now it is time, as Kevin Green once said. It is time. Let me properly introduce this segment. There's a lot of times football or sports fans in general will ask, if there's a big pop culture event, they'll ask in the replies of a tweet breaking that news, like, explain this in NFL terms. And, it's like, so if it's an old man failing, they'd be like, Tom Brady loses Super Bowl. So we're going to flip that on its head, and we are going to explain the Packers in Taylor Swift terms. Now, Big B, through my grace, has become a casual Taylor Swift fan, but I don't know if he will be participating much in this segment unless he has anything prepared. Is that the case, Big B?
I have nothing prepared. I'm just here.
All right. Well,
Along for the ride.
Yeah,
Yes.
let us know if something comes to your head. Okay.
All right.
All right. So basically, just like matching these Taylor Swift songs that me and Nicole are very familiar with to something else that we are very familiar with in the Packers situation. So, Nicole, you showed us pre-show your notes, so I will hand the microphone to you.
Okay, well, what do we want first? Do we want the season?
Yeah, let's go with that.
Okay, so for earlier in the season when things were looking rough, I'm going to
Yep.
go with Death by a Thousand Cuts
Okay.
because
Good
that's
choice.
an obvious one.
Yeah.
Now, I have a few other songs that can explain the season depending on how it ends up.
Okay.
So we have Exile for the lyrics specifically.
Ooh.
I think I've seen this film before and I
Oh,
didn't.
man.
Long story short could very well apply.
Yep.
Long story short, it was a bad time. Long story short,
Yes.
I survived. And then another one right now, hoax. Are they a hoax? Are they fooling everyone? Is this just a hoax?
It is the only hoax that I believe in.
There you go.
That's for certain.
There you go. Okay, do you want to go and then I'll come back?
Okay,
Bounce back and forth?
So yeah, I have on the season, I think right now they are definitely in the Great War mindset. And then one player specific one that I wanted to throw out is a Matt LaFleur note to Aaron Jones, which is unfortunately, I forgot that you existed for this weekend against Miami. So, it's been frustrating to watch that. And then another player specific one is, oh shoot, I'm blanking. What is it? Okay, here it is. So it's both aspects of this choice are very random, but I'm going with Dean Lowry to Girl at Home
Okay.
because they've got a girl at home in Devontae Wyatt.
That's a good one. Very relevant to the time we're in right now, too.
Yes, very niche. All right, let's hear some more picks you got.
Okay. So I actually came up with this started. I was trying to think of one for Christian Watson and I stumbled across one of my favorite albums, Red, Taylor's version, of course. And Begin Again really stuck out to me because it's like, Devontae's gone. What's happening to this offense? Who's the wide receiver of the future? Well, on a Wednesday in a cafe, I watched it begin again, Christian Watson.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, Joe Barry, I was trying to think of one, and no offense to Joey B. I Knew You Were Trouble, probably.
Ooh, okay.
It's a little fitting.
That is great.
Especially when the defense was looking really rough. And then Jordan Love, I was thinking, and I know Rodgers so famously was singing the song in Hawaii last summer. But Jordan Love, I think you could put him with the one because it would have been fun if the Packers had been the one. But who knows what his future is with the Packers, especially if Rodgers stays a few more years. And then, the first line of that song, he ends up somewhere else. Can I swear on this podcast?
Yes.
If he ends up somewhere else, I'm doing good. I'm on some new shit.
Oh, yes. That's a
When-
very good futuristic outlook for Jordan.
Yeah, so some of these I looked ahead to scenarios instead of for now.
Yeah.
Oh, and then Keyshawn Nixon, Fearless.
Oh, okay. I like that one.
Yeah.
One that I'm very proud of is Aaron Rodgers to Look What You Made Me Do.
Love that. Love that.
Specifically, just for the lyric, honey, I rose up from the dead. I do it all the time.
You know why I love this so much?
Why?
Because earlier I was thinking about this and I was like, Rodgers is in his reputation era. People are counting him out. They think he's dead. And then all of a sudden he comes up and here they are. They're going to be in the playoffs. So yes, same page with you there.
Yes, he is rising out of the Neil Schwarberg grave as we speak. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of ones from Reputation that you can go with too.
So many.
I mean, Ready for It is kind of just like how I feel before every Packers game. Delicate for their playoff hopes.
Love that.
Sure.
Great song too. The other one, I was trying really hard to think of one for LaFleur, and I'll go with one of my favorite songs from Midnight's.
Mhm.
The AM version is Would Have, Could Have, Should Have. And that's mainly because so many times this season he's brought up a few would have, could have, should have.
Yeah.
And he's, the whole not taking the bye week after the London game. He basically said would have, could have, should have for that. Maybe leaving Amari Rodgers out there on returns for so long.
Yeah.
Just thought. So I think woulda, coulda, shoulda could maybe apply to a lot of things this season.
Definitely.
Rodgers and LaFleur, I've been really trying to come up with one for them. Again, this is like down the line, story of us could work.
Okay.
It's like a tragedy now if they, I don't know.
Yeah.
Never win a Super Bowl together.
Yeah. Never winning a Super Bowl together relates to what's the lyric at the start that I used to think one day we'd tell the story of us
Story
as
of us.
like
How we
a
met
fairy
and the
tale.
sparks flew instantly.
Yes. Ooh,
I
okay.
The song, but I won't.
Yeah, that's a secretly good one there.
But it all depends how things shake out.
Definitely. Yeah, there's a lot of ball game left. And, if a lot of paths they could go on. So we'll have to see. I mean, I'm sure, given how things have gone in the past, tis the damn season for Rodgers to go out there wondering, what paths could have been taken. But he is
Yes.
ready to hopefully go into his reputation era. No more explanation, just reputation.
Reputation.
And
The old Taylor can't come to the phone.
exactly to drive the Packers to a Super Bowl. Big V, any other thoughts you want to add?
Zero thoughts.
Not even. You love Bejeweled. You don't want to even throw that one in there for a Christian
to
one.
do the shimmer, come on.
Big V is a TikTok hater, so I don't even know if he knows the
Oh.
shimmer trend, unfortunately.
I don't, but I just don't want to do it based on what you just did.
I didn't, there was a poor representation of it.
All right. Well, I'm sure, even if it was just my friend Nate, Cass, our friend Rachel, who enjoyed this segment, this is certainly Packers analysts that you won't get from anywhere else, and I can guarantee that for sure.
I should have worn my Taylor sweatshirt. I'm so mad.
I had my hoodie on all day, but I did not want to get burning hot under these lights I have. But other than that, Nicole, thank you so much for joining us today. A ball for sure.
Thank you. I had so much fun, and I'm going to be thinking about these Taylor Swift references to Packers every time I'm listening to Taylor now.
Yep,
Which is often.
Yeah, I can't wait for this playoff run that will undoubtedly provide us with many more crossovers, you could say.
Absolutely.
Okay, Big B, I'm so thankful that you decided to stick out that long Taylor Swift segment. Thank you so much for your dedication.
Yeah, no problem. It was actually not that bad.
Okay. Now, do you ever think in terms of, like when you're listening to a Queen song, do you think in the same terms of we do, like, ooh, this is a good one to a Packers player? Knowing you would be like, oh man, this song from Elton John really reminds me of Johnny Jolly. Yeah, do you think in those terms?
I do not think in those terms. I think honestly that is just a Taylor Swift fan thing, and that makes me think that you guys are absolutely ridiculous.
Well, we are. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Just proves my point.
Yeah. So good chat with Nicole. Cannot wait for this Vikings game on Sunday. One thing that I didn't mention in our chat with her is just how great it is to be playing meaningful football again. I mean, like after the Eagles game, I thought it was done. And that's from me, who is, like I've mentioned many times, I do not give up, do not lose faith in the team until the final whistle blows. But I was done after that Eagles game. Right? I was like, this team is not going to improve. There's no way they're going to be able to make it into playoffs. But by the grace of the Washington Commanders and also the New York Giants, they're having pretty pitiful seasons. Packers are still in the running. So the fact that we are here in week 17 and this game is going to be meaningful to us, thank God, man. Look, I don't, and this is why, like, when people earlier in the season, like, why would you even want them to make the playoffs? They're going to suck. They're going to get embarrassed in the first round. It's because of this. Like, I would much rather still be caring about this team here on December 28th than be done, be waking up on Sundays like I was earlier in the season and be dreading kickoff. Like, I would wake up on Sundays and be like, here we go with this again. Right? Like, so I am so glad that, no matter what is the end result of these past 2 weeks, if the Packers don't win out, if the help doesn't end up coming in, just the fact that they are still playing meaningful football, so thankful for that. Big B, are you as grateful as I am?
Yeah, I am. I was, as you guys know, I was very depressed in the middle of the year. Jokingly,
I
of
was like,
course.
this is new to me.
I was playing that character. It was fun, but I thought it was over at the Lions game. Bills game, I knew we weren't going to win that one, so I was just watching for fun. But I had no expectations for this team. I didn't think we were making the playoffs at all, so I was just like, hey, let's root for them. Let's root for wins and see what happens. And now we got a chance to make the playoffs. If we just win out and Washington loses one game, and I don't think we've had this type of playoff. I don't know how to say it. Scenarios since 2016, which is also pretty much what we've been doing, is running the table.
Yeah,
so a lot of similarities between the two playoff pushes, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I'm not even sure. Like, we might have controlled our own destiny in 2016. I'm not even sure. But yeah, I mean, this is a very new thing for the Packers to be relying on help. But I'm not going to complain for it, for sure. Zach Cruz wrote an article earlier this week on posing a very good question. Like, is this Packers team getting lucky, benefiting from a very bad NFC after the top three teams, benefiting from the 7th seed? Is that the case, or are they actually good? Should teams be actually kind of worried about having to play the Packers? And I honestly don't know the answers to that yet. If they play like they do in the second half against Miami, then I say yeah. If they have Christian Watson, then I say yeah. So I don't know, but all I know is that they're going to be playing meaningful January football, and I'm so thankful for that, as I've said many times through this. So that's all we got for you today here on the Underage Packers podcast. joy to have Nicole on. Make sure you follow her on Twitter to keep up with her coverage. If you're in the Green Bay area, watch her on Fox 11 and all of that good stuff. We thank you for listening into this episode of the Underage Packers podcast. Make sure you follow both of us on all of our social medias, and then also the Underage Packers, man. We greatly appreciate it. With that being said, we'll talk to you later. Let's get this dub this week against Minnesota, and go Pack go.